"Where were you last night, Marcus?" I inquired, my gaze fixed on my husband of 23 years as he awkwardly handled his gym bag at the kitchen counter. "I told you, Eleanor, I had to work late with a client. She needed extra assistance with her flexibility training." Marcus responded, avoiding eye contact as he reached for his protein shake. Something about the way he emphasized flexibility training made my stomach churn. At 47, I wasn't some naive pushover. And having spent 15 years in human resources at Zenith Dynamics, I could sniff out a lie from across a packed conference room. My husband's tells were becoming as glaring as a flashing billboard. The way he averted his gaze, the nervous clearing of his throat, and most tellingly the faint whiff of vanilla perfume clinging to his workout clothes, a scent that was definitely not mine. "That's 3 nights this week, Mark. Business must be booming at Aegis Athletics," I said, deliberately stirring my coffee with a calm I didn't feel. Marcus, at 52, had always been proud of his physique. Even now, his graying temples and laugh lines couldn't conceal the fact that he still turned heads at the gym where he worked as a personal trainer. But lately the heads he was turning seemed to be getting younger and younger, and his explanations were wearing thinner than dental floss. "You know how it is. Summer's coming. Everyone wants to get in shape," he said, giving me that perfunctory forehead kiss that had replaced genuine affection ages ago. "Besides, the extra money will help with the house payments." I watched him leave through the kitchen window, his pickup truck rumbling to life in our Phoenix, Arizona driveway. The desert sun was already blazing at 80 inches the morning, promising another day that would feel like standing inside a pizza oven. As Marcus backed out, I noticed something that made my blood run colder than liquid nitrogen. He was humming. Marcus never hummed unless he was genuinely deeply happy about something. And it sure as hell wasn't because of our morning conversation. That evening, I decided to conduct a little investigation of my own. While Marcus was in the shower, I slipped outside to his truck. The summer heat still radiated from the metal, making me squint as I pried open the driver's side door. The interior reeked of his cologne mixed with something sweeter, more feminine. I ran my hands under the seats, checked the glove compartment, searching for anything that might confirm my growing suspicions. That's when my fingers brushed against something small and tube-shaped wedged under the driver's seat. I pulled it out and stared at it in the dim garage light. Personal lubricant, the expensive kind. The kind Marcus and I definitely didn't use anymore since our intimate life had become as arid as the Arizona desert surrounding us. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched the evidence of what I already knew in my gut. I sat there in my car in the garage for what felt like an eternity, just staring at the tube in my hands. 23 years of marriage, and this is what it had come to. I thought about all the warning signs I had brushed aside: the new clothes, the sudden interest in protein supplements, promising to boost energy and vitality the way he started doing extra laundry and taking longer showers. Marcus had always been charming. That's what initially drew me to him when we met at a community college fitness class back in 2001. I was 24, fresh out of my human resources degree program, and he was 29, already working as a trainer with big dreams of opening his own gym someday. He had a knack for making everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room, whether he was helping an elderly woman learn how to use the elliptical or showing a nervous teenager the correct way to lift weights. Back then, I truly loved that quality about him. I loved watching him light up when he talked about helping people transform their bodies and their confidence. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony at a resort in Sedona, surrounded by those stunning red rocks and brimming with big dreams for our future. For years, we talked about having children, maybe buying a bigger house, possibly even opening that gym he always wanted. But somewhere along the way, those dreams just seemed to evaporate. The gym never materialized because Marcus could never save enough money or commit to a solid business plan. The children never came because we could never see eye to eye on the timing. And then suddenly we were both staring down our 40s and the conversations just stopped altogether. The bigger house remained a distant fantasy as we struggled to keep up with the mortgage on our modest 3-bedroom ranch in a decent neighborhood near Camelback Mountain. I started to notice subtle changes about 6 months ago. Marcus began working later and taking on more clients, which in theory should have been great news for our finances. But instead of being exhausted when he got home, he seemed energized, almost giddy. He started splurging on new workout clothes, expensive stuff from brands I had never even heard of. He upgraded his phone and became fiercely protective of it, taking it with him into the bathroom and keeping it face down during dinner. Then there were the mysterious phone calls he would step outside to take, claiming they were from clients with urgent scheduling questions. And the way he started mentioning one client in particular, a young woman named Skylar, who was supposedly incredibly dedicated to her fitness journey and required specialized attention to reach her unique goals. I had never been the jealous type. In the early years of our marriage, I felt secure in our relationship and was even proud that other women found my husband attractive. But this felt different. This felt like he was slowly slipping away from me, one late-night training session at a time. The most infuriating part was how he tried to gaslight me for even noticing. When I asked about the perfume smell, he shrugged it off as cleaning products from the gym. When I commented on his new clothes, he insisted his old ones were simply worn out. When I questioned his late nights, he acted like I was being controlling and unsupportive of his career. But now I had proof. Hard, tangible evidence that my instincts were right all along. I slipped the tube into my pocket and retreated back inside my mind, racing with possibilities. I could confront him directly, but I knew Marcus well enough to know that he would deny everything, and probably get angry at me for snooping through his truck. I could hire a private investigator, but that felt both incredibly expensive and deeply humiliating. Or I could do what my human resources training had taught me to do when dealing with workplace conflicts: gather more information and develop a strategic response. Over the next few days, I transformed into a detective investigating my own marriage. I started paying laser focus to Marcus's patterns. He consistently worked late on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, always returning home around 10 p.m., with elaborate stories about his exceptionally dedicated client, Skylar. He was always freshly showered when he got home, claiming the gym's facilities were superior to ours. His phone vibrated constantly with what he attributed to fitness app notifications. I also did some good old-fashioned social media sleuthing. It didn't take long to find Skylar Morrison on Instagram. 23 years old, blonde, and blessed with the kind of artificially enhanced curves that required both good genetics and a skilled plastic surgeon. Her profile was crammed with gym selfies and those nauseatingly inspirational quotes about living your best life and how age is just a number. She had recently started posting videos of her workouts, always filmed from the most flattering angles, showcasing her technique and her trainer's strong hands guiding her form. The trainer was clearly Marcus, although his face was usually conveniently just out of frame. But I recognized his voice offering encouragement, his laugh when she cracked jokes, and especially his hands. I had been married to those hands for over 2 decades. The videos were always posted on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday evenings, suspiciously close to the same time Marcus was supposedly assisting with her flexibility training. The comments were full of fire emojis and thirsty responses from men inquiring about personal training availability. Skylar responded to some of them with winky faces and promises that her trainer was the best and really knew how to work out all the kinks. What truly pushed me over the edge was a video posted the previous Friday. It was filmed in what appeared to be a private studio or apartment, not the main gym floor. Skylar was performing stretches that looked more appropriate for an adult entertainment website than a legitimate fitness routine, and Marcus's voice could be heard clearly in the background saying, "That's perfect, baby. Hold that position for me, baby." He called her baby. I sat in my office at Zenith Dynamics, pretending to review employee files but actually meticulously plotting my response to this epic betrayal. I could have taken the high road. I could have packed my bags and filed for divorce like a mature adult. I could have confronted them both and demanded explanations and apologies. Instead, I chose to get creative. If Marcus wanted to play juvenile games with tubes of lubricant, then we were going to play a game. But this time I was going to control the rules, and I was going to ensure that everyone involved learned a lesson they would never forget. That Saturday morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't experienced in months. Marcus was still sound asleep, snoring softly beside me, acting like he didn't have a single worry in the world. I slipped out of bed and tiptoed to the kitchen, where I started my day with a cup of coffee and the construction of a very specific shopping list. My first stop was Home Depot. I navigated the aisles with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she needed. In the adhesive section, I found precisely what I was looking for. Gorilla Glue professional grade, the kind that creates an instant permanent bond that can only be broken with industrial solvents or, in extreme cases, medical intervention. The teenage cashier barely glanced up as he scanned my purchase. Working on a project, he asked with the polite indifference of someone making minimum wage. You could say that I replied, flashing a sweetly sinister smile. Something that needs to stick forever. My second stop was a medical supply store where I purchased a large syringe, the kind used for administering medications to livestock. The clerk inquired if I had horses, and I informed her that I was helping a friend with her ranch animals. Another small lie in what was rapidly evolving into a highly strategic operation. Back home, Marcus was in the shower, getting ready for what he claimed was a Saturday morning training session with a new client who could only meet on weekends. I could hear him humming again, that same sickeningly contented sound that now made my skin crawl. I worked quickly and meticulously in the kitchen. Using the syringe, I extracted every last drop of lubricant from the tube I had discovered in his truck. Then, with the precision of someone who had spent years managing employee benefits and workplace safety protocols, I refilled it with the Gorilla Glue. The consistency was remarkably similar and the tube resealed perfectly. Unless someone squeezed it out and examined it under a microscope, they would never suspect a thing. I wiped down the tube, removing any trace of fingerprints, and slipped it back under Marcus's driver's seat exactly where I had found it. My heart pounded with a mixture of adrenaline and wicked satisfaction. This wasn't solely about catching a cheater. This was about guaranteeing that the consequences of his actions would be immediate, undeniable, and utterly unforgettable. Marcus emerged from the shower looking like he was headed to a magazine photo shoot instead of a training session. He had meticulously trimmed his beard, slathered on the expensive cologne I had bought him for Christmas, and was sporting workout clothes that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. "Big session today?" I inquired innocently, not even looking up from my morning crossword puzzle. "Yeah, this new client is really motivated. Might take a few hours," he said, checking his reflection in the hallway mirror one last time. "Well, you certainly look motivated too," I said, allowing just a hint of sarcasm to seep into my voice. He gave me a peck on the top of my head, the same perfunctory gesture he had been giving me for months. "Love you, babe. Don't wait up if I'm late." I watched him leave, and as soon as his truck disappeared down the street, I immediately put the second phase of my plan into motion. I called Marcus's mother, Beatrice, who lived about 20 minutes away in Scottsdale. "Beatrice, it's Eleanor. Are you busy today? I was thinking we could have a girls' day, maybe brunch and pedicures." Beatrice was absolutely delighted. At 74, she didn't receive as many social invitations as she used to, and she had always liked me better than Marcus probably deserved. She had been making subtle comments lately about how Marcus seemed different, and how she hoped he was treating me well. "That sounds wonderful, honey. Should I pick you up?" "Actually, I'll come get you. I need to get out of the house for a while." Perfect. This would establish my airtight alibi and ensure that I was nowhere near the scene when Marcus and his flexibility student discovered my little modification to their afternoon plans. I picked up Beatrice around noon, and we headed to a trendy brunch spot in Old Town Scottsdale. She was wearing one of her flamboyant pantsuits and had clearly put extra effort into her appearance, eager for our outing. As we settled into our booth, I felt a slight twinge of guilt about involving her even indirectly in my elaborate revenge scheme. But I also knew that if my plan worked, she would eventually learn the bitter truth about her son's reprehensible behavior. "Anyway, you look lovely today, Eleanor, but you seem a little tense. Is everything all right between you and Marcus, Beatrice?" asked, peering at me over her reading glasses as she perused the menu. "Oh, you know how it is. Marriage has its ups and downs," I said, taking a deliberately casual sip of my mimosa. "Marcus has been working a lot lately. Lots of new clients who need extra attention." Beatrice said, and something in her tone made me look up. "He's always been popular with the ladies, even as a boy. Sometimes I worry that he inherited too much of his father's charm, and not enough of his common sense." This was the most brutally honest Beatrice had ever been about Marcus's character flaws, and it genuinely surprised me. I had always assumed she was completely blind to her son's faults, the way most mothers tend to be. "Has he said anything to you about his work lately?" I asked cautiously. "He mentioned some young woman who's been taking up a lot of his time. Said she was very dedicated but needed specialized training." Beatrice paused, then added with a knowing look, "I've been around long enough to know what specialized training usually means when it comes to pretty young women and men going through a midlife crisis." I nearly choked on my mimosa. "Beatrice, oh honey, I'm not blind. Marcus's father went through the same thing when he turned 50. Started buying sports cars and dating his secretary." She reached across the table and patted my hand. "The difference is you're not the kind of woman who will put up with that nonsense. And Marcus isn't smart enough to realize what he's about to lose." We spent the next 2 hours talking about everything except Marcus's infidelity, although it hung in the air between us like the oppressive desert heat. Beatrice regaled me with stories about her late husband's indiscretions and how she had handled them with a combination of dignity and strategic revenge that impressed me more than I cared to admit. "The key," she said as we strolled towards the nail salon, "is to make sure the punishment fits the crime and that they actually learn something from it. Men like Marcus and his father think they're so clever, but they're really just painfully predictable." At 3:00 p.m., as we were getting our toenails painted in matching shades of coral pink, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus Session running long. "Probably won't be home until late. Don't wait up." I showed the message to Beatrice, who simply rolled her eyes. "Right on schedule," she said. His father used to send me the exact same kinds of messages. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me as I stared at my phone. By now, Marcus and Skylar were probably well into their flexibility training session. I imagined them in whatever seedy private location they had been using for their rendezvous, thinking they were so clever and discreet. I pictured Marcus reaching for his special lubricant, confident in his routine, completely oblivious to the fact that his unsuspecting wife had transformed his tool of infidelity into an instrument of righteous justice. "You know what, Beatrice," I said, leaning back in my pedicure chair. "I think today is going to be a very good day." She smiled at me with the knowing satisfaction of a woman who had seen this story play out before and knew exactly how it was going to end. By 4:00 p.m., Beatrice and I were browsing through an antique shop in Old Town, admiring vintage jewelry and sharing hilarious stories about our younger days. The afternoon was unfolding precisely as I had meticulously planned, a perfect alibi, complete with receipts, eyewitnesses, and timestamps that would unequivocally prove I was nowhere near the scene of what I fervently hoped was about to unfold. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a text from Marcus, but a notification from the neighborhood app that someone in my area was reporting unusual emergency vehicle activity. I felt my pulse quicken, but I forced myself to keep my expression neutral as I continued examining a vintage bracelet. "Oh, my," Beatrice said, glancing at her own phone. "My neighbor is posting about fire trucks in your neighborhood. I hope everything's all right." "Fire trucks?" I asked, injecting just the right amount of manufactured concern into my voice. "I certainly hope none of our neighbors are having an emergency." We wrapped up our shopping, and I drove Beatrice home, keeping the conversation light and resisting the overwhelming urge to constantly check my phone. When I finally dropped her off at her house, she squeezed my hand before getting out of the car. "Whatever happens next, dear, remember that you deserve better than what you've been getting. And sometimes the universe has a way of making sure people get exactly what they deserve." The drive back to my neighborhood felt both excruciatingly long and impossibly short. As I turned onto my street, I could see a small crowd of neighbors gathered on the sidewalk, many clutching their phones and whispering with barely concealed excitement. The emergency vehicles were gone, but the palpable air of scandal lingered like a cheap perfume. I parked in my driveway and walked over to my neighbor Brenda, who was practically vibrating with gossip. "Eleanor, you just missed all the drama. The fire department had to respond to that Airbnb house 3 doors down. Apparently 2 people got stuck together during," she paused, "dramatically intimate activities." "Stuck together?" I asked, widening my eyes with feigned surprise. "Some kind of adhesive accident. The paramedics couldn't separate them, so they had to call in the fire department with special equipment. They carried them out on stretchers, still attached, covered in bed sheets. It was like something straight out of a movie." Another neighbor, Frank, chimed in. My wife got the whole thing on her Ring camera. They're saying it might go viral. The guy looked familiar, though. Wasn't he that trainer from the gym on 32nd Street? My heart was pounding with a potent cocktail of satisfaction and disbelief. It had actually worked. My meticulously crafted plan had unfolded even better than I could have possibly imagined. The trainer from Aegis Athletics, I asked innocently. I think my husband works there. I certainly hope it wasn't anyone we know. Hard to tell with the bedsheets, Brenda said. But whoever it was is going to have a lot of explaining to do. The fire chief said they'd never seen anything like it. Apparently, whatever they used was industrial strength. I excused myself and went inside, my hands trembling slightly as I closed the front door firmly behind me. In the quiet solitude of my kitchen, I allowed myself a moment of pure, unadulterated satisfaction. Marcus had spent months thinking he was so clever, so discreet, so much smarter than his boring, unsuspecting wife who spent her days managing employee benefits and workplace safety protocols. But he had conveniently forgotten that his boring wife was exceptionally good at managing situations that required meticulous attention to detail, strategic planning, and a deep understanding of cause and effect. My phone rang, jarring me from my reverie. Marcus's number flashed on the screen, and I deliberately let it roll over to voicemail. Then it rang again and again and again. I brewed myself a calming cup of tea and settled in to wait for whatever flimsy explanation he was going to desperately attempt to concoct. Marcus finally limped home at 8:00 p.m., 3 hours later than usual, walking stiffly and looking like he had just survived a harrowing war zone. His hair was disheveled, his clothes were noticeably different from what he had left the house in that morning, and his face was flushed with a combination of humiliation and barely contained panic. "Hey, babe," he said, attempting to sound casual but failing miserably. "How was your day with my mom?" "Wonderful," I replied pointedly, not looking up from my book. "We had brunch, got pedicures, did some shopping. Very relaxing. How was your training session?" I watched him visibly struggle with how much to reveal. His jaw worked silently for several agonizing moments before he finally settled on it was challenging. Had to cut it short because of an emergency. "Oh no. What kind of emergency?" I asked with manufactured concern. "I certainly hope your client is okay." She'll be fine. Just a minor accident at the gym. Nothing serious." The sheer beauty of Marcus's predicament was that he couldn't possibly tell me the truth without simultaneously confessing to his affair. But he also couldn't conjure up a believable lie that would adequately explain why he looked like he had just escaped from a biohazard containment unit. He was trapped between his infidelity and his wounded pride, and watching him squirm was infinitely more satisfying than I had ever imagined. "That's terrible." "What kind of accident?" I pressed, gently relishing his discomfort. "Just equipment malfunction. The gym is handling it, insurance and all that." He was visibly sweating now, despite the fact that our air conditioning was blasting at full power. "I'm going to go take a shower." "Good idea," I said sweetly. "By the way, Brenda mentioned there was some excitement in the neighborhood today. Fire trucks and ambulances at that Airbnb house down the street. Some kind of unusual emergency." Marcus froze mid-stride halfway to the bathroom, his face suddenly paling. "Really, huh? Didn't hear about that. She said 2 people got stuck together somehow. Can you even imagine? What are the odds of something like that happening on the very same day you had an equipment malfunction at work?" The look on Marcus's face was truly priceless, pure, unadulterated terror, mingled with the dawning realization that his seemingly oblivious wife might actually know far more than she was letting on. Over the next few days, the full, glorious scope of the disaster became devastatingly clear. The Ring camera footage had indeed gone viral, amassing millions of views across every conceivable social media platform. While Marcus and Skylar's faces weren't clearly visible due to the strategically placed bed sheets, enough identifying details were shown that people within the local fitness community quickly deduced exactly who they were. Aegis Athletics swiftly fired Marcus, citing a morals clause in his employment contract and the overwhelmingly negative publicity that was severely damaging their business. Several of his other clients promptly canceled their training sessions, eager to distance themselves from the unfolding scandal. Skylar, who had been diligently building a social media following as a fitness influencer, found her comment sections flooded with cruel jokes about being stuck on her trainer. Our bond with the trainer deepened during our workouts. The local news even ran a story, a sort of light-hearted human interest piece, though they were careful not to mention any names. The news anchor, barely containing her laughter, presented it as a cautionary tale about the importance of reading labels carefully, and a testament to the fact that some exercise equipment is best left to the professionals. Marcus tried to play innocent for all of 3 days, but the mounting evidence and the relentless humiliation on social media finally broke him. He confessed everything while I sat at our kitchen table, calmly sipping coffee and listening with the kind of patience that comes from already knowing every single detail he was about to spill. "It just happened, Eleanor. I swear I didn't plan any of this. She was just so young and enthusiastic, and you and I had been so distant for so long. She made me feel like I was still attractive and vital." "And the lubricant under your truck seat?" I asked, my voice steady. His face just crumpled. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to make an informed decision about the future of our marriage," I replied, sliding the divorce papers across the table towards him. The pure satisfaction of watching him realize that his betrayal had been discovered, meticulously documented, and systematically punished was worth every moment I had invested in planning this revenge. Marcus's affair and the humiliating manner in which it was exposed cost him far more than just his marriage. Word spread like wildfire through Phoenix's close-knit fitness community, making it virtually impossible for him to find work as a personal trainer. He ended up taking a job at a big box store stocking shelves for just a fraction of what he used to earn. Skylar deleted all her social media accounts and moved back to Ohio to live with her parents, her dreams of becoming an influencer completely shattered by memes and mockery. The viral video followed them both everywhere, a constant reminder of their poor choices and how badly they had underestimated a woman they thought was too dull to even bother fighting back. They learned in the most public way imaginable that actions have consequences, and that sometimes those consequences come with an industrial-strength adhesive. I kept the house in the divorce settlement and used my share of Marcus's retirement account to finally take that trip to Italy I had always dreamed of. As I sat in a cafe in Rome watching the sunset paint the ancient streets in fiery hues and sipping wine that cost more than Marcus made in a day, I reflected on the strange journey that had led me to this moment of peace. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about precision patience and making sure that justice is served with just the right amount of permanent adhesive.